the Van Gogh.
I didn't see any of those.
Did you see the water lilies?
Lunch is actually good.
No. It was expensive.
No, but it was a good way to get out of work. Yeah. You know? Like, it was a nice day.
I'm Mary Winsky, and I teach 2 sections of 10th grade writing workshop. You might call it a writing workshop, where students are generating their own pieces of writing. It seems to me that the most important thing as we begin the year is forming community. And one of the ways we sort of do that symbolically, although we could do it many ways, is every time we come in, we form the desks into a circle. So by sitting in a circle, writing, reading, talking to each other every single day, they start to form that community. It looks different than some of the other classes around the high school, and I hope it is different. All right, we're going to check.
Okay, Cheryl.
David.
Denise.
Eddie.
Erica.
Jamie.
Jason.
Jordana.
Josh. Kevin.
Lisa.
Mel.
And Mary. I am last. Okay, would you take your journals out, please, your black and whites? We'll begin, as usual, with your 5-minute free write.
29. Today's the 30th. My birthday, guys.
I like the free write because I just get whatever's on my mind out of my mind for the rest of the day. Except if I don't write in the free write, like if I don't have a free write that day, like problems will just like manifest in my head. And so I like the free write the best because it just gets rid of everything.
Okay, so since we rearranged today, you're sitting next to someone who you might not have been sitting next to last time. And I'm just thinking, why don't you turn to the person next to you and tell them a little bit about your journal, like not just today, but any day, like how you use it, what you usually put in, or do you stop and start, or do you always write the same stuff, or do you try to give yourself a topic, or whatever, okay? Just so that they have a little sense of what that journal, how it goes for you, the differences, similarities. Why would you tell them
Well, I
about
usually
yours?
write about stuff that's happened to me in the past 2 days. Sort of like a diary, I guess.
I write about what happened to me and sometimes the quotes on the board. Like, I react. My first sentence in my journal is always, well, it's a beautiful sunny day, or it's a really mucky, rainy, cloudy day, and I'm in a bad mood, or, you know, it's like, and then I'll, like, go into, like, philosophies or whatever.
I was looking at this last night, and I was like, reading it, and it was so strange because it was like, I would like say something's going to happen, and then by the next time, it had already happened.
Why don't you turn back to your black and whites now, and with that journal out, why don't you just start jotting some of the topics that you noticed you've been writing about this year? Because we're going to get a chance to write today, and sometimes you feel like you're running out of topics and you need some more. So some of you will just remember them, and you could start jotting a list of topics. Some of you will want to take a minute to look. I find that I forget what I write about. Okay, let's just start going around, and we'll go around as many times as we have topics.
So we each say topic and then we're going to go around.
Yeah, and if you hear someone else say
Is
it,
that one topic?
yeah, pull something off your list that you think might spark an idea in someone else, or someone else might not have written about yet, or just pick one of your most common. Like I find when I might write my list, I could just say family, and that could be the whole book. Okay, why don't I start putting some of these on the board so they'll be up here in case.
I write about friends and relationships.
Okay, friends and relationships. Okay, Dave?
I've written a lot of stories about aliens.
My parents.
I've wrote about just made up like fictional characters.
I just make a list of what I've learned that day.
I write about what I see in pictures and usually like have the picture involved with my writing.
I like to write about my adventures and past experiences.
World peace was achieved through making everything into Nerf.
I find that I think a lot about, like, the way I've changed, like, things I've learned, and I kind of take those things and I don't really write about them directly, but I write stories, like fiction-type stories about them.
Okay. Lots and lots of topics from your past, now on the board and in the room. What I'm always amazed at is that we come in looking like regular people who just live high school lives. But what you always notice about writers is that they somehow lead that writerly life, that wide-awake life, that they notice more. So that list, even though it looks like we did fill the board with your ideas rather than perhaps a teacher's agenda, that list is, they're just words. But what it means is kind of the way you're watching life, kind of that wide-awake life. I put Thoreau on the board today. Stand up and live before you sit down and write. And
Looking
everybody...
for a story idea, it helps a lot to be reading a book, to be real observant of your environment, and to listen to other people's ideas, and to look back, like do timelines like we do in class, or do charts, or think about people you know and things you've done, and stories that people have told you.
Let me just do a quick status of the class and ask you what you think you want to do today. Now, you don't have to hold to it, but I'd just like to get a sense of where you think you're going. And if you don't know yet, just pass, and we'll come back. Erica, have a sense?
Well, I have no idea how I'm going to write it, but I have a bunch of elements that I know I want to put into this piece. But I guess I'm just stuck at whether I want prose, like a personal story, what person to use, and so that's where I'm stuck. But
When you say elements, what do you mean?
I know like what things I want to include, like from a list of topics, like certain little things I want to put into my piece, but I don't know what kind of piece it's going to be.
So it could be prose or poetry? Okay, anyone else? Jay?
Well, when I was young, I used to get hurt like all the time, so I thought I'd write about childhood injuries.
In the writer's mind, there's a cabinet and then each drawer there's like a different idea. And
What's different now is that they revise before they edit. They used to write it and edit it and hand it in. And now they write it and they rethink it. They revision it. They think again. Revising is thinking again about your piece. Editing is fixing the conventions, the mechanics of your piece, probably just before you hand it in. Although you can't predict the steps. There's not pre-writing and then drafting and then conferring and then redrafting and then editing. Some kids are editing as they go along. They're crossing out a word, they're fixing, they're putting in a comma, so it's recursive and interactive. You can't make it too linear. Okay, I'm just jotting a couple of self-conference questions on the board, the kind of questions that a writer might ask him or herself as you finish. And no matter what you wrote in the last 20 minutes, something happened. And I think these questions will work for whatever, whether you were listing or stuck or in poetry or prose or writing a letter or a tiny part of a short piece or the beginning of a long piece or something that just wrapped up and was finished right away. Some of these questions might work for you. And you want to try this question first. What am I trying to say? And you can do that like in one line or even a phrase. And see if you can sum it up. Have I said it? And if you haven't said it, then what else does it need? Okay? So those are the kind of things that you just thought about, and now you're going to take it to other people to listen. Now, look around for whom you're with. Take whatever you need with you, and you know that you will read, and the others will listen, and then another will read. You'll tell the best parts to each other. You'll make suggestions. You won't be cruel. We'll probably have 3 people over here. Who are the ones?
Holds 2 blocks. One is about 100 feet by 50 feet, and it's made of brick. This is when in the beginning, to respond to somebody else's writing, it's hard because they haven't, unless they read it to you and tell them how they feel first, you really don't know what their reaction's going to be. If you know the person, then it's much easier. But in order for the person to open up to you, they have to read their writing and tell you how they feel, and then it's much easier for you to I guess, criticize or help them along with their writing. It's people that are my age helping me with my writing, and they go through the same things that I go through every day.
If they're critical, I like that because they're really giving me what they feel. If they say something bad, I know that they're really telling the truth. When if they say something, whoa, this is great, I never really know, and you don't, because they're not gonna lie when they say bad stuff about your story. So I don't like it, but it's kind of good for me.
Some of my peers have helped me during writing conferencing with my story. They help me like edit it, and I can like see their writing ability, and some of them have like, you know, some of their writing is more like structure. Some things I like to do better in mine. So I can see like from their writing how to like improve mine.
I don't think writing is a solitary activity like I used to. There's a way to talk about writing that doesn't tear it apart. It's like, I think there's this pain and joy school of philosophy that either it should be painful and you take it apart and then you're a good writer when you're done, or it's joyful and oh, that's just fine. And someplace between is a critical zone, but not critical, harmful zone, is a constructive criticism zone. And I really think that knowledge is constructed in community. So I think they watch each other build. They scaffold each other up.
The cabinet. It's like
one part. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, I'm talking about the writer's cabinet and how the first picture is the best. Tucked away in a little corner, there is a section blocked off, which is my writer's block section. The section holds 2 blocks. One is about 100 feet by 50 feet, and it's made of brick. This is when there's absolutely nothing to write about. You know when one of your drawers are locked and you can't find the key, it's usually under one of these blocks. Then I have a tiny writer's block, which is when I can't find a word. This block has little legs, and it runs out onto my page and sits in front of the word or sentence. When this drawer becomes unstuck, then the block runs back into the drawer. This is my introduction to my writer's cabinet. It's my favorite. What about your writer's cabinet? I love mine, and without it, I wouldn't be a writer or reader. That's it. That's my writer's cabinet.
So even though the cabinet has blocks in it, you love it. You accept that part of it. You remember the way you felt blocked that first time. Do you remember the strategy that you used to get rid of it?
The strategy was, I think I listened to a lot of music, and it just like, it got feelings going, and that made me think of something to write.
What you could do also is just get a picture, just any picture, and just look at it for 10 minutes and then just write about it. Because when we went to the museum last week, I wished I had my writer's notebook with me because I just wanted to sit down in front of a painting and just write.
Well, let me just try and read you a part of it. Life is tough. For me, it's especially tough. When you're not supposed to amount to anything, life is especially tough. I'm not supposed to amount to anything. But I'm not trying to say I grew up in a slum or something, because I didn't. I've always lived in a house, or at least a decent apartment. I never went hungry. I think putting feeling is basically necessary to the story. And in my outside reading book that no one reads, I like to put as much emotion as I can in there, because I don't get to do that in real life. And it's kind of an outlet in that book for all that emotion that's stored up.
Okay, guys, we're going to move back into the circle now, please. So pick up your pieces. Circle the wagons. Move away.
Dave, I'm going to need
That's David's. He's creating a character. Good. Okay, so now you were with 2 other people that heard your piece, and hopefully were very helpful. So, if they were helpful to you and you heard yourself in conference, think for just a second about what you just learned from that conference, okay? Why don't you open your black and whites and just quickly jot any learning that occurred. We all start with I learned, and it might be something you learned about your own writing, or it might be something you learned about someone else's writing, or about what it takes to listen, or what is helpful. Anyone have a learning they want to start us off with?
I conferenced with 2 different people, and we all had very, very different writing techniques, but I learned that we all have the same, problems with our writing, and yet when we do it right, we all have the same satisfactions.
When I was reading my piece to the group, I learned parts that had to be changed, like mistakes I had made. Basically like Jamie, that I might not have saw if I had just read it to myself.
I've learned that part of the hard thing about starting to write something is, well, it's kind of like courage to like follow through with an idea. You don't know if it'll ever get anywhere, and there's also like there might be parts of it that are a risk, and you're not sure if you should put it in or not, and so it takes a lot of courage to, I think, to write well.
I learned that I'm not the only person who like has difficulty in trying to write down something and has to brainstorm first and get ideas before they just, start writing.
I learned that one of my favorite things is watching writers read to each other. The talk is good too, but it's the actual reading off the page I love, because that's where the other voice is. And then I wondered, is it a truer voice? I don't know, but at least I know it's a writer's voice. So I look around and I don't know, like I could just go, ooh, when I see people actually reading their words off the page. That felt good. One of the things my students tell me by coming in here every single time and just writing for 5 minutes is that they are then able to write anywhere. When they have to write a social studies essay or a math test or explain their thinking in a science log, they can do it there too, and it's just so handy. They're able to get on the paper right away. One of the first distinctions as we were looking at writing workshops that we had to dispel was that there was a dividing line between creative writing and any other kind of writing. All writing is creative. Harold Rosen says that everyone has a story to tell, and the teacher's question is, will they tell it to us? And once we get them telling their stories, then you take those stories back out into your life. And the flip side of that is, if you want to change your life, change your story. And I have a friend who just keeps reminding me that it's the stories we tell about our lives that change our lives. And I think some of them, when they talk to you about leaving, I think Jamie said today that she just comes in and writes for 5 minutes and then her whole day is better. I think they really do live their lives differently once they've written it down. Anne Morrow Lindbergh said that writing is more than living, writing is being conscious of living. And if you're conscious of living, then you're going to live differently.